Welcome to Demand 2023. This is Marketing and Sales Alignment 101, bringing go-to-market teams together. Today, myself and Todd Evers, our VP of Sales here at Center Security. I'm Joseph Barringhaus, the Director of Demand Gen. We're really excited to talk about go-to-market teams working together. It's super crucial to having a successful, company, honestly. And so Todd and I have been working together a lot recently, and we're going to dive in a little bit by making fun of ourselves, actually.
This is my favorite part.
To start, I think honestly, like, marketers like to think we do really cool stuff. We look amazing. My mom thinks that I just make coupons and send out coupons all day. I'm the guy that sends you your little coupon full of stuff. Sales thinks I play with an iPad all day. Sometimes I'm lucky and get to bring out colored pencils. I think I'm Steve Jobs. And then really, I'm just looking at data a lot to do my job, I think, decently well.
My favorite picture of that one, Joseph, is the genie. I think that marketers, all you're trying to say is look into my eyes and I'm going to tell you something.
Trust me.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not just making fun of marketing. We're going to poke a little fun at you too, Todd. I know we're on a golf course right now, but you know.
So I love these pictures because it does sum up a sales so well. So of course, my friends, all they see is the travel and the dinners and going out, taking customers to either games or getting to know them better. But my kids, they think I sell clouds actually. So lemonade's probably pretty close to what my kids think that I sell. Prospects. I love the shark. I think that's really funny. Of course, I'm not the suit and tie guy, but I do use Salesforce a lot with my reports and charts to dazzle people with data. And then it always seems that I am in some sort of crisis management. So I think that last picture is pretty accurate in what we do.
End of quarter, end of year. That's you to a T.
Exactly. Yep.
With that being said, let's talk about some bad blood, Todd.
Yep. So, let's start by recognizing that, marketing and sales, we have had issues as old as time, but probably because we have conflicting goals, right? And those goals really encouraged us to point the finger at each other. I know from sales, I'm guilty that I always wanted a scapegoat. If I didn't make my quarterly numbers, I wanted to point the finger at someone else, and marketing was always easy to point the finger at. It was, you didn't give me enough good leads, quality leads. I didn't have enough pipeline. And, you tried to get the focus off yourself into someone else. And marketing was an easy scapegoat, but that wasn't really serving any purpose or helping what we truly needed to do.
Yeah, and I'll add, it's actually really refreshing. We're going to talk about how to do it in a second, but it's really refreshing to not blame one another. Marketing does the exact same thing, right? Like, we can say, sales did that, marketing did this. We did the exact same thing. I remember back when I was first starting in marketing, I was told I've never missed an MQL number ever. I've always hit it. It's like, okay, that's not a real goal then. Like, let's be honest here. So I think it's super refreshing. And Todd and I actually had a very similar scenario this morning. We were talking about some issues with not having even the right data in Salesforce and how to figure out a solution here. It wasn't his fault. It wasn't mine. It was actually both of our faults. So we come up with a solution together rather than just pointing at each other and say, no, you do it. You figure it out. No, we'll figure it out together. It's super refreshing. So with that, Todd, you want to start some of these here at the top?
Yeah, sure. So, one of the things that Joseph and I have found is, if we align our goals and we collaborate, we actually really start to see some results. And, there are the bullet points. I won't read them verbatim, but, one of the things that I wanted to add to this was, if you're a marketer and you're already working at your job, one of the ways to start bridging that gap is to have an open conversation with sales. It's really about building partnerships and supporting each other. If you're out there looking for a job and you're in marketing and you want to get to know your end user better, ask to meet with someone from the sales team so you can get their perspective. Good alignment really helps you do your job better. Understanding the leadership styles of the sales team, and just to see if your priorities are in sync. If they're not, you're going to see a lot of mismanagement, a lot of assumptions, and that's never good. And you're going to see a lot of the times the priorities and the projects you're working on never truly are in sync and beneficial. Um, and so, what I like to do is actually invite Joseph and his team onto some of my sales team calls so they can hear what we're discussing, some of the obstacles. It's actually nice to have a fresh perspective from them. And even sometimes they've helped us with, we can do this for you. Did you realize that we have this available? And sometimes when you're really stuck focusing within that box, it's been refreshing to have Joseph come from a completely different angle and challenge us and make us think about ways that we could be doing things differently.
Yeah, it's the flip side too, though, right? Like Todd brings me into forecast calls and POV calls, but the flip side's true. When we're doing budget planning, which is like a really controversial topic, I know right now, every marketer in the world dealing with budget cuts, but when we had conversations or changes in the beginning of the year to set our budget, Todd was brought into those. I got to give credit to our leadership here as well, making sure that our teams were aligned and open to doing that. Like the having the conversations on what campaigns worked last year, what channels were working, what drove things to further pipeline. Data says it, sure, but there's always another layer behind it that you get when talking with the sales team. Like, yeah, sure, it converted, but like it converted because I actually did 15 other touches with other leads, and that's what actually got them through. The data won't always show that. So making sure that Todd gets brought into those conversations, gives feedback from what he's hearing on his team has been really valuable.
Yeah, and Joseph, I just want to add to that. I think it's key for that, that fourth bullet. A lot of times sales doesn't want to feel like I'm being told what to do or how to spend that money, right? And for you to come and say, we can do a couple different things. Do you have any suggestions or things that you would like to accomplish? It was a really healthy dialogue. And in the end, there was a couple things I didn't agree with, but it didn't feel forced. There was discussion. You had valid points on why you wanted to do it. And it was the right thing from a priority standpoint. But without that conversation, I would have just thought that you were just trying to, ram that down, and I would have left with a bad feeling.
Yeah, and that's super key. Like Todd's whole team too knows that they can come with questions to anyone on our team on the marketing side of the house, and it's because of that relationship that he and I have that it then feeds down to our teams as well, right? Like, hey, this campaign, this op, whatever, it did not work. And honestly, there's some component too of we just do stuff sometimes as marketers. I'm running campaigns that sales may never see, and when they get a lead, if they don't know where it came from or how it happened or why they decided to take the call or whatever, it's a completely different conversation that they have than if they were brought into the planning process and understand why the person maybe did convert or why they're supposed to be reaching out to them. So it just it helps not only with the flow for our team but with the flow for the prospect too. So super important. Establishing definitions and SLAs, like this is super crucial. I know every marketer in the world has asked for more information in Salesforce, and the reverse is also true. Every salesperson has put a lot of information in, and there still feels like there's always more. So I would challenge everyone to, before you establish SLAs, go through the process of being a salesperson. I know how to open an opportunity in Salesforce. That may be just like, yeah, so what? Everyone does, right? I promise you there are marketers on your team that have never opened an opportunity in Salesforce, converted a lead, done anything related to Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever you're using. Live a minute in their shoes and understand how much work it actually takes to do those things. And you kind of understand too, okay, the SLA needs to change. There's no way you could do that. But the flip side too, you do also need to establish those SLAs. If a lead does come in, if a demo request happens, how long do I have to respond? Maybe you're doing a meeting booker. How long do I have to then reach out after something's been set? And so we have some of those goals internally set, and it's been super crucial to understand even timelines on opportunities, account penetration goals, and the definition of what that might be or how you define penetration. So certainly something that you want to, I think, have clear definitions and examples of as well. And last but not least, second to last, we talked about this earlier. You can't share the same success if you have different goals. We'll talk through goals in a minute, but if we're looking at different data sets, and if you have a RevOps team, they're likely responsible for at least making sure it's the same data set. Shout out to Mike Daly. He is an absolute stud when it comes to helping us make sure we're looking at the exact same data. we've gone into many sessions before we got aligned where it was like sales is reporting 6 million in pipe or 50 million in pipe or 100 million in pipe, and marketing's reporting a quarter of that. It's like, wait a minute. Something's not right here. And so you really need to make sure that you're looking at the same data, so that 100 million you're looking at is actually 100 million across the board, and we're all looking at the same number. That's super important. And I think, especially as you're going into some of those lower funnel metrics, to make sure you're aligned on that data. So, last but not least, open line of communication. A team member on our team, his name's James, came up with the phrase "keep it hundo," and we try and live that out both within our internal teams, marketing to marketing, but also with sales. I'm not scared to go to Todd to have a conversation with them. Vice versa is true. Somewhat mutual respect that has, I think, been earned between the two of us working together. But he's not gonna change what he says because of who he's talking to.
Yep.
So setting common goals, super important. It's really crucial to success. So we're going to dive into the how, the why, and what to focus on. Todd, I want to turn it over to you first here. Let you take it a little bit.
Yeah. So, look at me using a quote from a chief marketing officer, but it shows it because it's actually really relevant. So the quote is, rather than a handoff baton pass, great marketing and sales teams operate as a soccer team, working together to pass the ball back and forth down the field to create and win new business and drive account growth. And I really like that quote because, when we're not working towards the same goal, it's really hard to actually work together. Think about, soccer in this instance. We're all on one team, but you could track the passes and the goals from different players. But at the end, it's the scoreboard that matters. Did you reach your revenue goals or other goals that have been set by the organization? Specific to that quote, just think of two players passing back and forth. They have to have timing. They have to anticipate. They have to have rhythm. At any point, if someone were to kick it too far ahead or behind you, you have to start over. And, time is critical when you're looking at sense of urgency with regards to these opportunities that are in your pipeline. And you almost sometimes have to execute flawlessly to win that business with a little luck sometimes. But if you are out of step with your marketing cohorts, it even makes that task even that much harder. So, so Joel, what do you keep in mind when you're setting your goals?
Yeah, that's good. I think we've talked about this a lot. And actually, goal setting, we talked about budget planning and even forecasting together. When we did our goals for this year, you and I worked together on those, Todd. And Mike was like
Yeah.
the key to the back and forth.
Yep.
I think it's important to remember goals are meant to be a stretch. And I know not everyone on this call, and us even as well, don't get to set our goals. In some scenarios, we may get to influence them, but we're still usually given a number from the business, and we can influence it, expect where it's supposed to go, make a suggestion, but sometimes it's just like, no, you have to hit this. I
Yeah.
will caveat, it's meant to be a stretch. Like, goals are always meant to be a stretch. It shouldn't be easy to attain. So when I said earlier, we always hit our MQL goal, come on. If you always hit a goal, you've never even been scared about hitting it, it's not a real goal. So when you're thinking about setting goals, someone be honest with yourself. It's meant to help you get better and to challenge yourselves too. So we shouldn't set goals that are just easy to hit. They're meant to be a stretch. And the
Yep.
next one, I'd say aligning the goals, pipeline sales, retention, NRR, marketing and sales have to be moving towards those same goals. So Todd said earlier, I think best, we need to have the same goals. We need to work together on the goals. And then last but not least, you should have a team goal that you're all aligned around. Just like Todd said, in soccer, forwards may want to score the goal, fine. But if the defense and the goalie are terrible, move on. And so I think we'll run into some of these different goals and what they may look like. Todd, I'll pass over to you. I think the long-term goals are often set by you and your team. So let's maybe start there.
Yeah. The first couple are, but if you look at it, I mean, yeah, the revenue goal and the ARR goals, churn rate, those are all customer and revenue type goals. But pipeline generation, a lot of that is starting with you.
Yeah.
Helping a shorter deal cycle, that's a combination of sales and marketing, right? And some of the programs we're putting in and examining it together. I think that's the other big thing is, you can't do it in a vacuum. I can go through with my team and try to figure out why, we have longer sales cycles, but it could be some input from your team, which they've seen, which will help us then come up with that program to actually have a shorter deal cycle. So, these goals are in conjunction with both of us, not just set by me and then you're following them or vice versa, right?
100%. Yeah.
Um, and then same thing for the short term goals of what is our in quarter pipe, and these just happen to be our types of goals. But the free trial conversions, that starts with your marketing on a website or who you're attracting with keywords or anything like that. I really don't have too much to do with that. So if we're going to be successful in the short term, has to be a maturation of both of our goals.
And that's where the SLAs and the definitions we talked about too are, I think, even more important is in this slide. When we're talking like free trial conversions or demo rate conversion, if we're seeing a slip in number of opportunities, often we'll go look and say, well, we have this right form submissions, right? Like we have the right web traffic. So there's a drop off somewhere in between our two teams. And that's where we go back to the drawing board. Like, can we fix an issue here? Can we align on SLA a little bit more? I think those are super, super important. And again, like back to the budgeting piece and the POV setting and bringing into forecast calls. If I don't know that there are problems, even in the long term, first of all, I'm doing a bad job as a marketer in the role we're in, but also like the sales team has line of sight to those things better than anyone else. And I'll even caveat, your work is put on display for anyone that has Salesforce access. I don't think marketers think about that enough. Every
Yeah.
opportunity, every deal, every pipeline number is under scrutiny all the time from anyone in the business. And my goals are kind of hidden. You have to ask me for me to give you the number, or maybe you have access to the tool. We really need to keep in
Yeah.
mind, like, it's a very different beast. Um,
That's an important point, though, Joseph, because
yeah,
in organizations in the past, usually Salesforce has been locked down and you're only allowed to see certain things that relate to you. Being in a smaller company, we've made the decision that we want to be completely transparent. And you'll see that as one of our personal goals later. That we want to be able to show everyone. So we don't lock it down. We give everyone access so that way everyone can see what we're doing at any given time. So if your organization's not doing that, that might be one of the things you might want to change from a transparency standpoint so you can get to know the business better.
yeah, and honestly, a great place to start your head of sales or even just an individual sales colleague. If you have a sales member that you're close with, maybe you as the marketer aren't close with the whole team or the leadership team on the sales team yet. Start with just one rep and ask them to walk through. Like, can you explain to me how your pipeline works? Can you explain to me, what you're looking like you're going to hit on a forecast? I think that's a super, super good way to start. The last one I'll spend a little bit less time on because, again, it's team specific. We really want to focus on the first two, but that doesn't mean just because we have a revenue goal that I don't care about web traffic or the number of demo requests. So I certainly pay attention to those too. When we set those goals, often we'll set them in private. Demo requests, web traffic, we have goals, but they're not relevant to the long term or short term. They may impact it and they may be good leading indicators, but I promise you the business isn't going to care if your web traffic dipped by 2% year over year if you hit your revenue goal. Wouldn't care one bit. So just keep in mind that those may be goals to help, but those goals should also be set to be relevant for your overall business goal. So, again, look at the exact same data. And we'll talk through, I think, a little bit of unified goals here as well. Um, I've decided it's time to become a team player. Our sales and marketing teams are aligned to pipeline and revenue, like we talked about. Our goals are literally the same goals as the company. No more MQL goals. I don't have an MQL goal. If it was 5 or 5,000, it doesn't really matter unless we hit our revenue goal. And I'll caveat that by saying, if you follow anyone on LinkedIn or Twitter, you'll see a lot about how easy it is, but it's honestly somewhat challenging if you're not on the same page. A lot of leaders have been on this MQL hamster wheel for a long, long time. Have those conversations with your leadership before you're like, I want a revenue goal. It's not as easy as a switch, but you have to start having the conversation before planning. Honestly, at this time of the summit, it is a great time to have that conversation with your leadership as you're starting to plan for next year if you're not already on those goals.
Yep.
The last thing I'll say is we help each other. Todd mentioned it earlier. I'm a buyer of tools. Marketers are buyers of tools. Sometimes I have insight as a buyer that other sales colleagues maybe don't have. Or I experienced a really great sales process. I want to tell you guys about it. Let me explain why I enjoyed this, which is surprising sometimes, right? talking through what you enjoyed going through a deal cycle. So marketing does marketing. We can help with the entire funnel instead of just a tofu goal, which, like an MQL goal. So it's great to actually be part of that conversation. And honestly, like, sales gets to do sales. You get to focus on doing what they do best, making and closing deals, and doing less busy work when you have not an MQL goal with an SLA of 15 minutes of following up. Like, it's a bad lead. Move on. Like, just the goals focus on revenue instead. So we jointly work together to crush those joint goals. And I think it's important to talk about why we changed our goals. And some of that starts by just talking about money. And Todd, I'm going to turn that one over to you.
Yeah, so I think this is really important because if you're a marketer and you're trying to get inside the head of a salesperson, and I would say not to, but it really would help if you understood who your audience is and what motivates them, right? And it's not as much as oh well, they have a annual contract value quota number, and so they get a percentage of that based upon their comp, and that's what motivates them. It goes a little bit deeper than that, right? So, I mean, for example, do you know if your salespeople get multi-year bonuses? Do they have a certain percentage that they have to drive through partners? Do you have accelerators based upon a new product that was just rolled out? Do you get special compensation for renewals or expansion on renewals? Like, all those things could have different marketing programs that could help that salesperson achieve not only their overall target, but all those individual components. And those individual components really add up from an incentive standpoint. So just by asking that next level of questions, you really could align with your sales team and those salespeople to make programs that could be so impactful that you're going to have a great joint bond for your working career with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. It actually surprises me how many marketers don't know how salespeople are paid. So this is just definitely something I want to at least stop and chat about too. We're going to talk through navigating the challenges, and I think that's kind of how we'll wrap up here. Todd, I know you've got an acronym for these. You want to walk through them?
Yeah, sure. So, it's actor, but ACTR. I don't know, have an O yet, so it's just, but really these four things, I'll come up with an O, so it's easier. Or is it ACT anyway? Accountability, collaboration, transparency, and respect. And these are our four core values that I have when I'm interviewing, when I'm looking to add people onto the team. And really, if you boil them down to these four, it talks a lot about what Joseph and I are trying to do and continue to do. And when you treat people with respect, you can have hard conversations. You can hold people accountable without making them feel degraded. You can collaborate and disagree like we've done before, and if you're transparent with no hidden agendas, it really allows everyone to feel comfortable and establish trust, which is a hard thing to gain, but once it is, it makes working with your team and other people so much easier and enjoyable.
Yeah, and that last piece I'll take on too. You have to bring the team. So I think it's super important. Shake and bake, Ricky Bobby. It's important to bring the whole team with you. We're all moving in the same direction. I know that's why everyone loves the phrase ABM or talking about ABX, whatever the heck it's called nowadays. But that's why everyone loves the concept, because you're working with your counterpart. I think there's a desire to want to work with your sales team. Some of it just starts by saying it, right? Like, Todd and I are having conversations like, we need to work together on this. Have that conversation with your sales leader or with your sales counterparts. I think using your tools another way, using your tools for better communications, transparency, and Slack. Our sales and marketing teams are in joint Slack groups. I post probably as much in our sales channel as everyone else on the sales team. And that's because we want to make sure we're sharing the wins. Todd, I have to give a mega shout out. You didn't know I was going to do this, but I have to give a huge shout out for celebrating micro wins, right? Like, yes, deals are great, but what about the things way before a deal even happens? We open it up with an amazing company that we've been working for months to get into. Like, that's a win that we should absolutely celebrate. And then I think getting your teams talking, Todd, you want to take on that one a little bit?
Yeah, actually, Joe, I wanted
Yeah.
to end it with this. For our audience out there, Joseph and I have only been working with each other for about a year. It's not like we have this long friendship or partnership.
Well, I mean,
This is really the first time that I've been able to find a partner in marketing and work with them closely and have the dialogue that we've had. So it can happen, and it can happen quickly if you align those goals and do some of the things that we discussed. You can forge that bond relatively quickly and get on the same page and go from there. So for me, it's been a pleasure working with you, Joseph, and I'm
likewise.
looking forward to the things that we can accomplish with these same goals and being on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. Bring the team along. I think the last piece I'll leave it with, Todd. Both Todd and I have daughters, and as different ages, but as parents, our daughters look to our each other, honestly, to the parents to see what they're doing. I'd say it's similar to bring your team with you, right? Like if mom and dad aren't on the same page, I'm just going to go to mom instead and get the
Yeah.
okay instead of going to dad. Like my daughter knows how to game the system. I promise you, your teammates do too. So make sure you're on the same page with your colleagues. Um, we share big wins. We talk a lot. We communicate throughout the org, and honestly, go forth and shake and bake.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for your
Thanks,
time.
y'all. Appreciate it.